Welcome back to another episode of Azrael Reacts. I'm your boy Azrael, and today, man, I got some more of that brown unity. Oh yeah, that brown unity between the Asian and the brown community. Cause black is the color of this. I'm brown. I'm just a darker shade of fucking wheat than you light fuckers out there, but I'm still brown. You can like it, you can love it, I don't really care how you feel about it, but we all come from different shades of wheat. Look it up if you don't believe me. But hey, I'm brown. I'm not black. I don't like going by that, because black is the color of my shirt, color of my pants, cover up this fucked up chair. That's the color of black. My hair isn't even black. Like, it looks black, but it's actually really dark brown. Just letting you know, it's not black, it's dark fucking brown. But anyway, we bring some more brown unity to you guys today. So, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe for a brother, because you know it really helps us out over here. Every little bit helps. And let's go ahead and get into these videos.
Blacks and Asians hate each other. That's the popular narrative. We've been encouraged to not understand each other, not empathize with each other, and not ally with each other. Who stands to benefit and who stands to lose if we get together? Our communities are natural allies. We have a lot of the same issues with America. How we were brought to America, the impacts of American commerce and imperialism on our home countries. So much in our history would make us align with each other. And the truth is, often throughout history we did. Paul Robeson, Yuri Kochiyama and Malcolm X, Grace Lee Boggs and her husband Jimmy Boggs, even the Black Panthers were inspired by freedom movements in Asia.
No, I didn't know that.
People and institutions that benefited from propagating the status quo pushed us apart. Asian refugees showing up in America, pushed into the same neighborhoods, left to fight over scraps for resources, schooling, land, who would get loans. There has been enmity between our communities, not because we just hate each other naturally.
The DNA of Native Americans were traced all the way to Siberia, which shows that Native Americans and Native Siberians might be related, and Native Americans might have actually migrated from Siberia. So you guys in America might actually be true Siberians.
What in the is the Howard study? I recently came across a video of someone talking about the Howard study that was based on Black and Asian relationships. I can't make this up. I knew it was going to happen eventually, because after the drastic increase of Black and Asian relationships in the last decade alone, people has been noticing it and finally acknowledging this and be like, oh maybe we should run a study on this and figure out why that is. Okay, great. Black and Asian solidarity, I'm loving it, I'm seeing it. Historically speaking, this is actually amazing for Black and Asian solidarity, because that's what I represent. Black and Asian people has been in it for each other for hundreds of years. This is an undeniable historical fact. I don't know how true that person's video is, so I'm not going to mention it too much. So I decided to do my own research on it, and I found a Howard study regarding Asian and Black relationship likely refers to research conducted by scholars at Howard University. Excellent. A historically Black college examining the complex dynamics between these two racial groups, often focusing on issues like racial stereotypes, the model minority myth, and the potential for both interracial solidarity and tension within the context of systematic racism. Now, this is actually, I'm loving this right now. This Howard study is probably one of the fewest of things based on studies that I can actually probably agree with. But wait, gotta dive into this more. Intersectionality. Howard studies tend to highlight how Asian Americans and African Americans can experience both privilege and oppression depending on the situation, leading to potential conflict within the communities. This is actually very true. Now, based on the model minority myth, the reason why it was created to begin with is because after and during the Civil Rights Movement and the Yellow Peril movement, and racial groups like like African Americans and Asian Americans were uniting as one finally to fight for civil rights back in the 1560s and 70s. Because of this, the government noticed. It created the model minority myth as a way to separate the Asians and the black people from ever creating and uniting as a solidarity. By the way, this is probably going to be a long video, so stick with me. See, I just mentioned this. Research may explore how the model minority stereotype applied to Asian Americans can sometimes be used to pit them against Black Americans, creating tension. This is incredibly true. The government created the model minority myth as the perfect minority for Asian Americans as a way to pit the Black Americans and Asian Americans against each other. And the reason why they did this is because they do not want Black and Asian solidarity, because Black and Asian solidarity is actually one of the most dangerous solidarities within the country. I have been saying this for a very long time, and I'm going to continue to say it. This is why the model minority myth was created in the first place, because that's all it is. It is a myth. However, I will also say this, it only applies to East Asians. That model minority only applies to East Asians. They do not include Southeast Asian or South Asian individuals. And they barely also include East Asians depending on what country you are from. Anti-Blackness in Asian communities. Studies may examine instances where Asian individuals might perpetuate anti-Blackness sentiments either consciously or unconsciously. I got mixed feelings about that one. While focusing on challenges, Howard's researchers may also highlight areas of potential alliances and collaborations between Asian and Black communities based on shared experiences of racism. This is how they are managing the similarities and complex issues between Black and Asian people, but also trying to figure out the dynamics and sentiments that they have with one another. Honestly, this is what I think on the matter. Black and Asian solidarity is one of the oldest solidarities in the country alone. That is just an undeniable fact. With Black and Native Americans coming in first and Asian Americans and Black Americans coming in second. How I feel about this is very mixtual. When they said that Asian individuals might perpetuate anti-Black sentiments either consciously or unconsciously, this is I can see that being true. There is a lot of Asian Americans who tend to be very supportive of Black people, Black Lives Matter, etc. And yet they will turn around and say some racist shit about the Black people they are trying to defend or claim they are supporting. I think this holds some truth, but I don't think this is entirely true. I think this also stems from not just racism and anti-Blackness, and or also stems from lack of education, knowledge, and historical figures. How many Asian Americans or Black Americans know about not just the civil rights movement, but also the Yellow Peril movement and the connections that Black and Asian people had ever since the 1800s? This is incredibly important and needs to be talked about more. It seems like the Howard study is mainly talking about the racial tension and the dynamics between Black and Asian people, which I think this is actually one of the first studies that can actually get behind, though I need to do more research on it and I'll have to get back to you guys later in the future. But I just felt like this was something I needed to share with you guys because this is actually incredible. I'm interested to see where this goes. Let's do it.
Blacks, Asians, and Latinos will never get along. Actually, it's the opposite. Our movements are all connected at their roots. In 1968, the Third World Liberation Front was a coalition of Latino, Black, Asian, and Native college students in the Bay Area. They were angry. After working to get admitted and paying expensive tuition, their classes and textbooks had little in common with their lived experiences and communities. When San Francisco State fired several of the already few professors of color, student groups leapt into action. They went on strike, occupying campus buildings and demanding equitable admissions, more faculty of color, and the removal of Army recruiters from campus. Administrators responded by banning student gatherings and calling in police. Faculty began joining students on strike. After months of tension, police violence, and multiple arrests, agreements were finally reached. The Third World Liberation Front's legacy lives on in ethnic studies departments, which didn't exist until these students demanded them. Yet, some argue that these departments let universities silo away scholarship of color, while most departments remain exclusionary and Eurocentric. Still, it's important to remember the Third World Liberation Front as a moment that showed us what it can look like when Latino, Asian, Black, and Native communities fight together for a common cause.
When Asian Americans are attacking affirmative action and DEI and standing for socioeconomic entitlement to the exclusion of others, especially Black Americans, who paved the way for the civil rights that we have here in the United States, and including lower income, recent arrival, and especially Southeast Asian Americans, I will fight against that all day, every day, because regardless of race, it's what's right. But fortunately for me, multiple polls from multiple sources over multiple years have consistently shown that a majority of Asian Americans across most Asian demographics support affirmative action. So it's looking like the Asian Americans who are attacking affirmative action and DEI are in fact the traitors. And this becomes especially apparent when you look at the organizations that are bringing these Asian American cases against affirmative action. Like Edward Bloom of Students for Fair Admission, who had been attacking affirmative action in higher education for decades to no avail with white plaintiffs, he brought the cases against Harvard and UNC using Asian American plaintiffs. And the Pacific Legal Foundation, which was founded by members of Ronald Reagan's welfare reform team, who brought the lawsuit against Thomas Jefferson High School. And the Manhattan Institute, which filed amicus briefs against affirmative action in the Harvard, UNC, and Thomas Jefferson cases. Now, without infantilizing the Asian Americans who have signed on to be represented by those organizations, they have autonomy, they know what they are doing. But those are not Asian American-led organizations. Those are white-led conservative and libertarian organizations. And if the plaintiffs knew their history, they would be aware that those organizations represent people who only care about Asian Americans insofar as they can use this as a wedge to cause harm to Black Americans. Now contrast that with Asian Americans Advancing Justice, one of several Asian American-led organizations who filed amicus briefs in favor of affirmative action in the Harvard, UNC, and Thomas Jefferson cases. So it's looking like it is the Asian Americans who are attacking affirmative action and DEI, knowing that their actions are causing harm to Black Americans and lower income, recent arrival, and especially Southeast Asian Americans, who are in fact the race traitors.
I completely agree, and that's why I wanted to talk about this in a historical context. When you go back in time to the 60s and 70s, where there was legit community and coalition building between Black and Asian peoples and communities, you had pillars in the Asian community like Bruce Lee speaking out very loudly against police brutality, very loudly against racism, educating men in dismantling toxic masculinity. Like, Bruce Lee was not just about like beat people up. Bruce Lee was the biggest proponent of, if you can beat them with your brains, then beat them with your brains. But if not, then force needs to be used. And when he passed away, his son was carrying those same ideals in the 80s and 90s, virulently pushing me back on this kind of idea of not only the Asian nerd, but the emasculation of Asian men and its effects on the Asian male psyche. But unfortunately, with his passing as well, just like how the US government proliferated, the crack epidemic in the Black community, how they did gerrymandering to disenfranchise Black voters, how they incarcerate Black people at a rate 6 to 10 times higher than white people. They then created this idea of the model minority myth in the 80s and 90s and brought over the brain drain from Asia to America, specifically to create a wedge between Black and Asian peoples because of the solidarity in the 60s and 70s. And so that's why you see a resurgence in like the 90s and early 2000s, because those were the kids of the people who had solidarity in the 60s and 70s. And you constantly see white media trying to push back on this narrative for like two broke girls having that, Asian stereotype. And solidarity is at an all-time low because Asian men are now doing the work of the white supremacist system on themselves. And that's like what the most disheartening part of it is that our history teaches us that solidarity is the key. But when the system erases our history, that's when solidarity breaks down. And so that's why it's so important to know what's happened before us.
Imagine this, a world where Black families, even Black individuals, GDP, income, earning-wise, they're doing better than white people. Imagine that kind of world, right?
I don't have to imagine it. It's already happened several fucking times. But yet every successful and prosperous Black community was either bombed, burned, had a lake put over it, or has a park on top of it now.
Out of all the communities in the U.S., guess who's doing the best? Asian communities. They're doing better than even white communities.
This shit was set up by design. Let's start up with what they have done for the Asian community. Our little breadcrumbs of privilege. When the mass immigration started after 1965, Asians are afforded small business loans. in black communities where black people are denied business loans. If you look at the median income that you're looking at, the highest earners of Asian Americans is actually Indians. Those are our students. Those are our doctors and our engineers that they allow into this country. Because if you're a poor Indian, they're not going to allow you. If you're a poor Korean, they're not going to allow you. You have to bring in some type of merit. Now let's also look at what they don't do for the black community. 40 acres and a mule. That's what was promised to formerly enslaved black Americans that they never got. But instead, what they got was laws to make it illegal for them to farm because they were doing so well farming for themselves. Outside of indigenous Americans, formerly enslaved black Americans are the ones who are original farmers. Yet there were laws made to make it illegal to farm your own food. There is so much more I could debate in your video that you stitch because you have no clue about Asian American history and oppression in the United States. Knowledge is power. And you are definitely powerless, which is why you have these hot takes. And you're even like enjoying the fact that you're the most hated man on TikTok. And quite honestly, you're not. But I would say you are the loneliest.
Let her cook.
Addicts were Europeans. Before China ever touched opium, Britain was addicted to silk, to porcelain, to sovereignty it didn't own. The opium wars weren't about drugs. They were about forcing China to kneel. Because Europe couldn't compete with our cosmology. So they flooded our ports, humiliated our scholars, and carved our cities like rotting fruit. You call that trade? We call that war. Missionaries were the original spies. Christian missionaries came with crosses and left with maps. Every church was a blueprint. Every translation was surveillance. What they couldn't convert, they cataloged. What they couldn't understand, they destroyed. Your God came with bayonets. White photography is theft. Those old Orientalist photos of Chinese peasants with bound feet, that's not documentation. That's pornography. Europe turned Chinese suffering into visual currency. They didn't help. They published. They didn't mourn. They archived us. China didn't copy the West. The West enforced amnesia. They say China is catching up. Catching up to what? We had printing while they were still illiterate. We had medicine while they were bleeding people with leeches. Modernization wasn't progress. It was forced forgetting. Solidarity is not optional. If you are Chinese and still think black people are the problem, you swallowed empire whole. Africa didn't flood your ports. Britain did. Black struggle weakens the empire that humiliated you. Stand with them or stay colonized. Happy AAPI Heritage Month. Cope.
Even if you are not ready for the day, cannot.
Why did I just get a good talking to from one of my Asian friends about how awesome black people are? Now, while it might have been a little off-putting at the onset of the conversation, because my first thought was, where is this going? And what are you finna say? I gotta admit, he had a few good points. Let me tell you what they were. So the first thing he started telling me was that he felt like creativity and innovation was a big part of our DNA. The way we express ourselves and how we lead culture in so many different types of ways. He just realized that it all really translates back to our roots. Now I'm listening like, okay. Tell me about our roots. He goes on to talk a little bit more about our values and how we care about each other as a whole community, which I was like, some communities, but go ahead. He went on to talk about how deep he felt like our values went and about how we show up for each other as a community, which I was like, oh my God, okay, like tell me more. He also talked a little bit about like a shared cultural respect and how we care about our elders and how many of us are very family oriented, which I thought was really cool. Because I know for me, I love my family. I don't play by my family. Mess with one of my cousin's kids, my mama, bitch. This all, it seemed to be especially important to him just because he felt like this was very similar to how he was raised and how his family is, which I thought was really interesting. for him to share, but just also interesting to hear that there are parallels in other cultures, which I know there are, but I just was like, okay. He seemed to be very connected to Black people, which I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, I mean, we're awesome. I think we're great. I walked away from the situation feeling very seen, but also just like people outside of my people see my people. Not just for like the cultural aspects and some of the things we do well that like everybody gets to partake in, but just like who we are as a group of people that exist and take up space in the world. Like people be seeing us, okay. And I don't know, I think it's beautiful to know that other communities, people that don't look like us, appreciate us. Because I feel like the narrative always is just, they don't like us. It's nice to know that other cultures like celebrate us and appreciate us in the space that we take up. I don't know about you guys, but I don't always spend a lot of time thinking about it. I just try to go out and be myself and exist in my truth and the reality of who I am, especially in a world where like folks everywhere are trying to erase our contributions. I definitely feel like I left that conversation thinking, maybe we are magic. Maybe we do shine so bright that they can't ignore us. Remember, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. And I think that's, for those people who want to erase contributions, that's probably their fear. Just saying, can't speak for it, I ain't afraid. I'd love to know what you guys think. Share in the comments below. Just wanted to share that, thought it was interesting. Hope you guys are having a great day, but even if you're not, find some reason to smile today. Peace.
And it made me think about the historical relationship between African Americans and Asian people in the South. And there's I forget the name of the author, and I apologize, but there's a book called Afro-Asian, and it's essentially the intersectionality of Black folks and Asians.
That was the first thing I thought. I was reminded that there were whole generations of other communities in this country
grew up together.
That we don't know any of their stories here during that time. It infuriates me.
Yeah, it's bananas. But it's the Afro-Asian. I just started it, and thus far it's been very informative and a solid read. I've also picked up The Amateur because my wife and I went to go watch the movie The Amateur. Let me not say I picked it up. I'm rereading or reread, The Amateur in preparation to watch the film. And it is close enough to the book that it doesn't turn you off, but at the same time, because The Amateur was written during the 80s, the early 80s at that, there is a stark deviation from where the current film is. The Amateur with Remy Malek from Mr. Robot and a host of other movies and stuff. So
and a great Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes,
no,
and
not Larry Lawrence. Be clear.
Yeah, let's give the man his respect. I wish that not to spoil the movie, but I wish that Lawrence Fishburne was seen more. I'll say that. I wish that Lawrence Fishburne was seen more in this film than he was. But the way the movie ended, there is a belief or leaves the door open for there to be a continuation. So hopefully we will see another film, and it will also include Lawrence Fishburne. So I'll
and just to piggyback off of the Asian Black connection, that has been an intentional removal of both of our histories. There's always been an intentionality to cause a gulf between the two races. One of Malcolm X's great friends was someone of Asian descent who was wildly supportive of him in many ways. So there has been an intentionality from white folks to disconnect the Asian struggle from the Black struggle the same way they've done with the Latin Hispanic struggle.
Everything predicted in their blood seems to be written in their faces. It's like looking at a composite model of every face from around the world. The eye shape of East Asians, the high cheekbones of Mongolians, the mid-brown skin that could turn darker or lighter.
So the San, also called Bushmen, and these are very ancient people whose history in southern Africa is perhaps 40,000 years old or more, probably older than that. I would expect more like 100,000 years. Now 10 or 15 years ago, showing this image, I would have said that that they look like East Asians, like Chinese, like Koreans, etc. But now I would say that East Asians look like them. And there's a good reason for that, because these folk like this are the original people of Africa and Asia, or at least very ancient people. And then we see something very similar with this San woman right here. And this is interesting because it shows that not all Black people are dark. Some black people are naturally light-skinned. It has nothing to do with racial intermingling. Again, we're talking about the original man, the original woman, original humanity, black coming out of Africa.
The Nile River, which we came down, flows from south to north. See, we came down the river.
That's why when they tell you, the river Nile, that before they used to teach us in school, that hopefully they don't know more, that the river Nile originated from Egypt, because they wanted to keep the lie that the map was the other way around, because as you can see in this map, it's the correct way. Africa is actually on top, and Europe, etc., and Asia and all of that is underneath. Yeah? Anyway, so Uganda, the river Nile actually starts from Uganda. Big up Ugandans. And then it ends in where? Egypt. Yeah? But because the map's turned around the other way, the wrong way, yeah, because you know how it is, like, so I'm saying, like, people think that, we're just being anal about talking about race all the time as black people, but it's just because of the fact that, history has been rewritten, whitewashed, absolutely ridiculous, and just because we want the truth to be out, it doesn't mean we're being hateful. Do you understand? We just want the truth to be out.
Came up the river. So when we came down in this direction, we looked at this as the bottom. This is the bottom. And see, a lot of the ancient fossils is in the Central East region of Africa, but they left this region and went south before they came down north. You'll find a lot of ancient artifacts in South Africa. So they went south before they came north. And so all these civilizations down here, even India, they got enough nerves to act like they as ancient as Africa.
Hey, that's what I like to see. We need some more brown unity, and I'm gonna keep on bringing it. But nah, hey, that's what I'm saying. The Native community, there's been a couple that's been coming out that's been talking. I'm not gonna say that all of them not talking about it. There's been a couple that's been coming out that's been talking about it, who've been admitting the truth. But majority of them is still on that whole WAPO shit, like we got something to lie about when it's just the truth. The truth is being revealed. Of course, we're not looking for white Americans to actually tell the truth, because they couldn't do that if it fucking hit them in the face several times over. They just won't. I'm not saying all of them, but most of them won't. They hold up that white supremacy very, very, very high, and it's just crazy. But the Chinese, they're willing to admit it. The Russians, they are definitely willing to admit. Look at Putin. That man just pulled it out and said, hey, we'll lay it out flat for y'all to see. And the Chinese is like, hey, we know where we come from. Look at our people that's over here still living in the jungle. They still look just like the original people who came over here. So, hey, that's all I'm saying. They're not lying about it. But I got some more coming, because the brown unity ain't done. So be on the lookout for it. But if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe for it, brother. Because every little bit helps out the channel. And we thank you. Thank you so much. And I've been your boy Ancestral. This has been another episode of Ancestral Reacts. And I'll catch you guys next time. Deuces.